1059 and 100.7 WSIC. The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us here, 4 o'clock hour. If you're a 9 to 5er, you got 53 minutes, 34 seconds until we get to the finish line here, and I appreciate so much you spending this time with us as you're looking at the end of your day here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Now, you know we're talking on all manner of things here. Sometimes we're talking on macro, global kinds of things, looking at things economically, financially that are around us that may be a part of what different countries are doing, different economic systems are doing. Certainly if we're looking at central banks around the world and the kinds of things that they're deciding, we're often looking at that and what that means for us here. But we're also looking at things on a very micro level, looking at things that may be part of your experience, perhaps part of family members' experience, colleagues' experiences here. But in doing so, you also recall, as a previous listener to Dollars and Cents, that nothing that we're talking about here is intended as a specific recommendation for you. Meaning that even though we're talking on these things, we're going to be talking about it again today. I promise you we're going to be talking on specific companies, sometimes in a positive light, sometimes in a not so positive light. But in doing so, again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold anything, and not a recommendation for your particular financial situation. We strongly, strongly recommend that you reach out to your tax advisor, to your financial advisor, or if you'd like to reach out to us at North Main Financial Group, love to hear from you. Love to chat about your particular financial situation. Reach out to us online, northmainfinancial.com. That's north like the direction, Main like the street, financial.com. northmainfinancial.com. We have a contact page on there. Leave us an email address, a phone number. Let us know the most preferred and desirable ways for us to contact you, again, at northmainfinancial.com. And if you'd like to give us a call here in the studio, perhaps something hitting your radar screen and you're wanting to know what our thoughts are to it here and whether it's something that's perhaps on our radar screen or the kind of thing that we think is important, relevant in terms of what's happening in our economic sphere, or if there are particular financial situations. Now, you know we can't give you specific recommendations. We can't do that here. You hear me caveat all the time. This is not a recommendation. Fill in the blank kind of thing. So I can't do that on the air here, but certainly if it's a part of your experience, you'd like us to talk to it and I can fit it into the show, love to hear from you. Love to chat about it. Love to bring it up on the air here, certainly if we can. 844-788 844-788-3464. So 844 Studio 4 here in Studio 4. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, producer Bill, as I say, Studio 4. And I have to be very slow when I'm dialing and there's a word as part of the phone number. That is something
you have to think about.
I do. And you know what's terrible is the letters are right there.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's not like I got to go search for them or anything.
Correct.
But I actually have to think about it because in this day and age on these so-called smartphones, which is not indicative of its owner, just of the machine, that it's just, I'm just looking for names.
Right.
Like if I'm looking for you, I mean, I literally, I'm just pressing your name.
Right.
And it does whatever it does and dials you. So
Correct.
Anyhow, so I have to be sensitive to that if you could call us in here in the studio. Love to hear from you. 844-788-3464 here in the studio. Love to chat about it. But thank you so much for tuning in to this week's version of Dollars and Cents. First section here, we talk about what's hot. And when we're talking about what's hot, these are the kinds of things coming across your radar screen, probably on your headlines if you're looking at business news, the kinds of things that are out there. And these first ones I'm going to bring up, you can see me if you're watching me on the socials here, or on any of the live streams, live feeds here. I'm kind of slumping my shoulders a little bit. It's not because these things are bad or wrong. And again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold, but I feel like I got to talk about them. Boy, they're hitting the radar screen again. I mean, they are on all the business news programs that I watch, and certainly all things print, and it has to do with meme stocks. Now, again, you may say, okay, first of all, what's a meme? I know I had to look it up as well. And then when we're talking about meme stocks, what does that mean? Well, it's a fair point. I still haven't been able to define it all that much, outside of the fact that there are a collection of stocks with, it's at least to this point, relatively low stock prices, which have been, let's call them part of a frenzy buying in our relative past, and then it has resurfaced, has come about again here in the last couple of weeks with regards to a certain number of companies. Not all companies, and again, you're going to ask me to define a meme stock. I'm not your guy. Let's call it these companies which have hit the radar screen of a certain number of, let's call them, very motivated buyers. And who are motivated to buy them in quantity and perhaps buy and sell them multiple times in a day. In doing that, but I'll tell you what, I mean, you can't take your eyes away from some of the movement of some of these stocks and the volumes. We're not talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. We're talking about tens of millions of shares being transacted on a daily basis. I mean, this isn't just a couple of folks who just had a bright idea to manipulate the market. No, they were talking tens of millions of shares. And yes, that could be folks who are buying and selling multiple times in the same day, sure. But it still happens to be tens of millions of shares, definitely hitting the radar screen of all things. So there are several out there, and I'm gonna mention two of them, which just happen to be the ones that I see most often in my watch of the markets and all things that are associated with that. GameStop, GME, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold GameStop, which may be not very well received by these folks who enjoy meme stocks. And then AMC, actually the movie theater company, the company that operates literally hundreds of movie theaters around the country. So GameStop, AMC, definitely two of the most popular ones that are out there. Now, again, as I mentioned, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold GME or AMC or anything else for that matter. But certainly when we're talking about those kinds of things, be cautious. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to cast a negative light on it, but when we see these kinds of very rapid movements, either in the positive or the negative, especially when there is an exceptional amount of either enthusiasm or negativity with regards to that, we just encourage folks to be cautious. Understand what you're buying. Understand the reasons why you're buying it. If you're buying it for momentum, that is not necessarily a bad thing if that is your strategy, if that is your intent on buying these kinds of things or selling these kinds of things, is to take advantage of momentum or to take advantage of significant movements in a short amount of time. Just identify it in that way. Meaning that in terms of how you think about things, the reasons why you're buying, the reasons why you're selling, that's very important because it takes a little bit, not always, but it takes a little bit of the emotion out of the process. Meaning if you're buying it saying, you know what, I'm buying it at $4, hoping it goes to $4.50, and then I'm going to sell it because I think there's some momentum behind it, there's a lot of enthusiasm behind it. That is what's sometimes called a momentum trader, meaning one who buys into momentum with the anticipation that that momentum is going to continue and then is going to sell at some future date as the momentum fades perhaps, or perhaps when that price hits a certain stock price. But in doing so, again, you're not buying it for fundamentals. You're not even buying it for technical reasons, really. You're really buying it based upon the enthusiasm of other buyers and sellers of this particular stock. So just keep that in mind. That's the only thing about that. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold. It's not obviously our style at North Main Financial. That doesn't make it right, wrong, good, or bad. It just makes it different in terms of the kinds of things to which we normally give our attention. But my goodness, I mean, the number of times that I'm seeing it come across the radar screen. I mean, I'll say it this way. I watch a number of news programs because I like to see what other folks are watching and the number of things that they're seeing out there. I mean, it's pretty close to the top of the list in terms of what hits the radar screen for what's out there in the markets right now. Certainly, it's in the top 5 of news stories here over the last couple of weeks. Very interesting because really for almost 2 years, it was really off the radar screen. It came on as a phenomenon here a couple of years ago, and now it's back again, so very interesting to see. Keep watching it. We'll see what happens. Will it continue? I don't know. You'll have to stay tuned to find out. Appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. We're going to hear from our sponsors here for a few seconds. Hang with us as we get into the second quarter here on WSIC.
There's more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on the way from 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
We'll stay dry tonight as temperatures under a mostly clear sky dip down to around 60s. Some outlying spots around the farms and lake may even see upper 50s by Friday morning. Most of our daytime will be dry. Clouds on the increase, though, and by Friday evening, we'll have to keep an eye out for an isolated shower or pop-up thunderstorm. Heading into the weekend, it'll start soggy with rain on Saturday into Sunday, but will dry out Sunday evening. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
The WSIC app is available now wherever you get your apps, featuring local deals from great local businesses like ISI Denver.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. This Friday and Saturday, the Thumb Pickers Convention is happening in Statesville. The Iredell Arts Council welcomes Eddie Pennington, Parker Hastings, Caleb Coots, and others. On Friday, the doors open at 5 p.m. with the concert starting at 6. On Saturday, open mic and workshops run from noon to 5 p.m. with the concert beginning at 6:30. Tickets will be sold at the door with combo packages available. For more information, visit IredellArtsCouncil.org. The Kane Center for the Arts welcomes a performance by the Charlotte Symphony Orchestra Sunday. This thrilling program includes works from Rachmaninoff, Wagner, Handel, and more. Doors open at 1 p.m. with a 2 p.m. showtime. For more information on these shows and many other programs, visit canearts.org. That's C-A-I-N arts.org. It is NASCAR All-Star Week at North Wilkesboro Speedway. On Friday, the NASCAR Cup Series holds practice and qualifying, along with a concert featuring Tim Duggar and Neil McCoy. On Saturday, the NASCAR Truck Series contests the Wright Brand 250. Sunday is the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star Open, and then the All-Star Race on Sunday night. Visit NorthWilkesboroSpeedway.com for details. Ghostface Brewing in Mooresville holds the inaugural Battle of the Bands on Sunday. 8 bands play their hearts out on 2 stages with 1 winner. The Battle of the Bands begins at 4 p.m. on Sunday at Ghostface Brewing in Mooresville. Micaiah's Bar and Live Music in Mooresville has a brand new trivia game on Tuesday, May 21st. Come out and meet WSIC on-air personalities as the station helps Micaiah's have fun with trivia on a Tuesday. We're excited to meet you on May 21st at Micaiah's. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Call now to speak with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi at 844-STUDIO-4. It's dollars and cents on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us into the second quarter football reference. By the way, Producer Bill, in case you forgot, we are 1 week closer than we were last week to the start of football season.
I can taste it.
I can too. And hope springs eternal.
Meaning
I am absolutely looking at our Carolina Panthers, and I'm looking at and I'm seeing all kinds of new possibilities, new faces, which means there is just a basket of opportunity.
Correct.
In front of us.
Best football is ahead of us.
It has to be.
It has to be.
That's not fair. That was a little too negative there. I got a little carried away. But we are 1 week closer to the start of football season. But if you're an NBA fan, boy, you're in it right now. Fun to watch there. Got to admit, Celtics fan. Glad to see that they beat the Cavaliers here. Got to put that.
Handled business.
Yeah, they did. They won the series there last night. So got to put a plug in for the Celtics on that end of things. And of course, we're right in the heat of baseball season. Orioles playing well.
Yeah.
Forgive me for not knowing.
No. Yep,
Okay.
they're right up there.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So good. All right, well, we're moving on here. Second.
Yeah, forgive
quarter.
me. I'm going to remain quiet for now because there's still a lot of baseball
There's
left.
a lot. It's early.
Yes.
It's early, as we like to say here at WSIC. So it is still early, usually referring to a disappointing Panther season, but certainly with regards to baseball. All right, thanks so much for hanging with us here into the second quarter here on Dollars and Cents. We went to the break there talking about meme stocks. I mean, that may be something that you may be one who's done well with that. I hope so. I hope that you have done well with it. We're just talking offline here about somebody who actually held on from the last mania and finally was able to benefit from holding on from the last time that the meme stocks were atop. I tell you what, but there are about literally 7 people that did that. I mean, that might be a literal number. I'm not using hyperbole there, who actually held on from the last time. But we got a lot of players in the mix right now. I mean, if you got 50, 60 million shares, which is what we've been seeing here recently in some of the most popular ones, there are a lot of people in the mix right now. So kind of interesting to see. We'll keep watching it. All right, let's continue on. Earnings here, one of the biggest and most well-known. I don't think you can dispute that Walmart certainly is one of the most prolific in terms of the consumer spending experience, and certainly the number of folks who darken the doors at Walmart. And they came out with quarterly earnings here. And I'm going to go right to the bottom line. And it was a little bit surprising to me. That's why I'm bringing it out in this way. Fairly positive. It really was. And you can look at it and say, oh, there's always going to be some negative. Big company, always going to have some things that you probably don't desire about it. But I was somewhat surprised by the resiliency to this point of the consumer, and specifically consumer spending at Walmart. So what they have found at Walmart, what they saw here in the last quarter was specifically that they had more people coming into Walmart, meaning a greater number of shoppers coming into Walmart this quarter as opposed to year ago, and a year ago quarter, meaning kind over kind in looking at it, and but not spending as much. So more shoppers, not spending as much. So revenues were fairly flat during that time. I thought that was kind of interesting because that certainly has been the case when we're looking at grocery stores, we're looking at other retail spaces. I'm looking at Target, I'm looking at Kohl's. Similar that the tickets are smaller, meaning the amount that folks are spending is smaller, and then also fewer folks darkening the doors, meaning fewer folks actually entering the physical facilities. Walmart was showing actually a greater number of folks who were coming in, also showing smaller tickets, but their revenues remained flat because they had a greater number of people. Pretty even math there in terms of the equation and how that's put together. So very, very interesting. Their earnings outlook, which is really what piqued my attention in just skimming through the 10Q there. By the way, 10Q is a quarterly report all publicly traded companies need to file with the SEC. If you are really suffering from insomnia, you may want to check one out sometime. But otherwise, I wouldn't encourage it. But I was skimming through the 10Q for Walmart, and their earnings outlook for the coming quarter and for the balance of their fiscal year, I would say pretty positive. Very interesting. Very, very interesting to see that. And especially interesting in light of what I'm going to share with you next, because we've seen this data now for a couple of, no, I can't even say that. I got to say several quarters now at this point. So we're really bumping through a year where some of this data with regards to the consumer. Now, as a quick reminder, you hear me say this a lot, especially if you're a repeat listener here on Dollars and Cents. You hear me say this a lot. The consumer, between 2/3 and 3/4 of our overall economy, meaning we are a consumer-driven economy here in the U.S. As folks spend, so do we move. That is absolutely how we function here. It's not just the individual consumer, it's also on a corporate level. So it's not just in terms of the individual who is buying in a retail space, but all levels of the supply chain in terms of how folks spend. We are a consumer-driven economy. But I'm saying that to say what I'm going to say next. Saw some, actually in a couple different places, from some of our major news outlets. I'm looking at you, Wall Street Journal, I'm looking at you, New York Times, in terms of what I'm saying next, in terms of studies done recently about the consumer, and specifically about credit card debt. And I'm saying that you can see my body language again if you're looking at us on the socials here. Not positive, but it hasn't been positive now for over a year. And I say not positive because the average balances on credit cards, meaning those folks who carry balances month over month, they don't pay off the balances each month, has increased almost a third here over the course of the last 15 months. Over a third, meaning the size of the balance that they're carrying has increased over 30%, actually over 33% in terms of that balance. That's big, folks. And I say it from this standpoint, A, because it's a larger amount of debt that is being charged a very high interest rate, especially in this interest rate environment. So that's very costly debt. It's non-collateralized, so it's not like it's real estate or even a car, which even though a car depreciates, has some level of collateral associated with it. It's non-collateralized debt, meaning that the value that you have is your phone, or maybe the groceries you consumed, or maybe the couch on which you're sitting, which has practically no residual value, unfortunately. But it is electronics aren't literally worth the plastic and metal that go into them if you're trying to resell them in many instances. So when we're talking about credit card debt, we're talking about non-collateralized debt being charged a very high interest rate, and those balances have gone up over a third here over the course of the last 15, let's call it 18 months now or so. So when we're looking at that up over a third, what are the ramifications? Well, let's talk about why real quick here on the What's Hot segment. Why is that the case? Well, a lot of different arguments on that. You'd be hard-pressed to say that at least in part it's due to the fact that so many things are more expensive. You go to the grocery store, Less so now at the gas pump. We're going to talk about oil and energy prices a little bit later on here on this week's version of Dollars and Cents. Stay tuned for that. A little bit of a teaser. But grocery store, absolutely true. When you're looking at furniture, when you're looking at any kind of consumer durable of any kind, cars, my goodness, electronics. Geez, have you tried to buy an iPhone recently or some similar kind of smartphone? It seems those prices just no limit in terms of how much they're increasing. I mean, we're talking about significant expense here and significantly more expensive here over the last couple of years. So that definitely is a factor, or perhaps even a couple of factors into why that's been the case. Are those the only factors? No, of course not. But that is at least a factor in there. Some of the postulation with regards to the studies as well has to do with what the, let's call them habits that were formed during the pandemic have spilled over now post-pandemic, meaning that during the pandemic, there was a significant amount of government stimulus, checks, cash, which was shoved into the economic system, which folks received during that time. So they weren't spending as much money, and then also received funds that were not part of their normal earnings cycle. So you had not as much spending and more cash flow. So you maybe had an increase in terms of the type of things that were bought or the kinds of spending patterns which were established over the course of those couple of years. Now the postulation is, at least according to some of these studies, that those spending habits have continued without that stimulus. So if that's the case, obviously, same income, more spending, you're going to have more debt, most likely. And that's again, some of the postulation that has been given here. So at any rate, however you want to cut it, the numbers are the numbers. And it also is an indication then about what the future buying possibilities or what the future consumption possibilities are for those folks who are carrying that debt. Meaning that if you have a larger debt on a credit card, at some point, because there are going to be higher, at least minimum payments, which are required, especially with the higher interest rates associated with credit cards, that's going to impinge that consumer's ability to buy other things. I mean, think about it. I mean, it's just math, right? I mean, unless their income is increasing significantly, which you would think if it was increasing significantly, they'd pay off the balance, sidebar. But if it's not increasing significantly, then that's the kind of thing that they're going to need to which to give more of their financial resources, which will keep them from being able to spend on other things. I know it sounds like I'm talking fast on this kind of stuff, but this is how it goes together. This is the consumer. This is how the consumer spends. This is where the consumer spends, and this is how it impacts us as an economy. So if the consumer is not able to spend on other things, folks, that's a big deal. So that's why we're watching that. That's why it's such a big deal in terms of the data point. It's why the report from Walmart, frankly, was surprising. By the way, Walmart, WMT, Walter, Mary, Tom, ticker symbol, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Walmart. Just wanted to mention that as well as part of the normal caveat when it comes to publicly traded companies. But very, very interesting to me, certainly. And I would offer up that it's important when we're thinking about all things economic and financial, that it's important to keep that kind of thing in mind, because if that does slow down the consumer, that bleeds into all parts of our economy. And then if we slow down as an economy, what does that mean for us in terms of future growth? What does that mean in terms of the markets? We're going to talk about that in the fourth quarter. Hang with us, little tease there. I'll make sure that we're giving some attention to that. But what does that mean in terms of market growth? Are companies going to be able to maintain the same kind of pricing power? You keep spilling down the line. The ramifications are notable. What does that mean in terms of apartments, townhomes, rental properties? Are we able to maintain the same level of rents in those kinds of places? Are we able to maintain the same valuations on residential property, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes as well? Is that going to be able to maintain at that level if the consumer has to slow down? So again, a number of factors in play here. These are not binary. I'm not drawing just a straight line through all of these, but just in terms of the considerations that we need to keep in mind in analyzing where we are, and perhaps more importantly, where we're going. So that's important. Big stuff. And as we're going to get into the second half here, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about residential real estate. We're going to be talking about gas. We're going to be talking about oil and energy. We're going to be talking about the markets. I promise we will. And I promise you also we're going to be talking about food. Now, we like to talk about food here on WSIC. That's a little bit of a teaser. Maybe even a couple of things that you're going to need to watch when you're out there scrounging through the supermarket shelves for these kinds of things that might be even a little bit fun. I appreciate so much. Hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Hang with us into the second half here on WSIC.
We'll have more of Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi following these brief messages on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
We'll stay dry tonight as temperatures under a mostly clear sky dip down to around 60s. Some outlying spots around the farms and lake may even see upper 50s. by Friday morning. Most of our daytime will be dry. Clouds on the increase, though, and by Friday evening, we'll have to keep an eye out for an isolated shower or pop-up thunderstorm. Heading into the weekend, it'll start soggy with rain on Saturday into Sunday, but will dry out Sunday evening. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Get into Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville.
At the Chevrolet store, truck season continues. What's that mean? It means deep discounts, huge selection on Silverados, Colorados. I tell you, Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville, we've got the four-wheel drive, two-wheel drive, crew cabs, double cabs, regular cabs, any color, any style. You come pick it out today. Again, deep discounts during truck season. Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville, right on I-40.
RandyMarionStatesville.com.
Prioritizing your health is one of the best ways to take care of yourself. From routine visits to the joys of pregnancy to the illnesses that stop you in your tracks, Iredell Health System will be by your side. Learn more at iredellhealth.org.
This is Fred Lowry at Lowry Drug. We now have our own brand of full-spectrum hemp extract, also known as CBD oil. I personally manage this product as it was grown on my farm here in Iredell County. It was in process and bottled here in Statesville. This is a true herbal extract with all the medicinal components intact. A product you can trust to be authentic. And since there is no wholesaler, it's at a price you can afford. Try it at Lowry Drug on Hartness Road in Statesville.
WSIC is looking for the best teacher in all of Lake Norman.
Oh, it's definitely our teacher.
Then go to WSIC's Instagram page and cast your vote. A winner will be picked each month on Good Morning LKN.
Brought to you by Nina's Boutique and Brighter Smiles of Davidson. Has anybody seen our teacher?
She's definitely accepting her award.
Join your friends from Oswald Baptist Church in Troutman, Sunday mornings at 8:30 on WSIC. Be informed and inspired with teachings from the Word of God by Pastor Wesley Morris. Sunday mornings at 8:30 on WSIC.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Minutes to go ahead of Wall Street's closing bell, and we could see another record closing high today for the Dow at least, thanks to bets that inflation continues to head lower and the Fed will have to start cutting interest rates later this year. The Dow, which topped the 40,000 mark for a time today, that's the highest ever, is still up just a small fraction. The Nasdaq and the S&P down a fraction. Shares of Walmart up 7% after posting strong earnings last quarter, thanks to a lot of higher earning shoppers who went to its stores for the first time last quarter, taking advantage of cheaper prices on food and other essentials. A sign that sky-high prices and mortgage rates above 7% are putting the squeeze on housing. New home construction posting a smaller than forecast increase in April, while building permits, a sign of future construction, declined. And Adidas planning to make a cheaper version of its popular three-striped $150 Samba sneakers could retail for as low as $60. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
We're back now with more of Dollars and Cents with your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much. Hanging with us here into the second half. This week's version of Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. And as we were going to break there, we were talking about some positive things. I would say Walmart's numbers. Just heard from the Bloomberg Minute there that the Walmart stock up significantly today. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Walmart, but up significantly today on what I would call it positive, a positive quarterly report from them. Again, revenue relatively flat, but definitely got some new shoppers through the door there, and smaller tickets, meaning smaller average amount of sales per shopper in this last quarter. But still, you got more people coming through the door. It's a good mitigation strategy, at least in the short run, relative to future growth. So kind of interesting to see that. So all right, so we've been talking about meme stocks. We've been talking about credit card debt, and Walmart would be a good segue here. Yeah, crackers. Crackers. And I'm talking about Goldfish. Now, Producer Bill, don't know if Goldfish crackers have been a part or are a part of your consumption experience or not.
Yeah, I fish.
Yeah, you fish?
Yeah, big-time fisher.
Yeah, I have two daughters who are not so young anymore. Well, they're somewhat young, but they're not as young as they used to be. I guess that's true for all of us, that they may or may not be huge fans of Goldfish crackers, which means I have, just grudgingly, not so grudgingly,
right,
helped them out with the consumption of Goldfish crackers through the years. There is, and as one who is very partial to the city of Baltimore, as you are,
okay,
Goldfish crackers, and it's not the first time, but they are coming out again with Old Bay seasoned.
Yes.
Have you seen this?
Oh yeah, I was around the first time for this. Yeah.
And they're coming back.
Okay, this is big news in my household.
This is a big deal. Now, and hold on here, because this is, I don't want to say this is breaking news, but it is certainly news for all of you Old Bay seasoned Goldfish cracker people, that if you can go online right now for the next couple of days, and there's some kind of drawing of some kind. You're going to ask me for the website, and I don't know it, but I bet you can find it on a Google search. And they're giving away Old Bay seasoned Goldfish pool floaties.
Wow.
I mean, I when I saw this, I really didn't know what to say.
Wow, there's just a constant glow around them.
Well, there is, and apparently they have certain cutouts in, say, the parts of the... I mean, it is. It's the sunshine coming through the clouds kind of experience, where you can perfectly fit your bag of Goldfish.
Okay.
So I mean, so I'm not making this up. I really don't think that. At least I hope I'm not making it up. At least the internet told me.
No, I will be registering. I will not be sharing the link.
That's because you want to increase the odds.
Correct.
I don't blame you here. But yeah, I guess for the next couple of days that you can sign up for the Goldfish floaty, and specifically the Old Bay seasoned Goldfish floaty. I was, again, I'm relatively speechless. I don't know where you go with that.
Exactly.
Because I love Old Bay.
Yes.
I love Goldfish. I love food, and I'm good for floating.
Right.
So I don't know.
That was a good meeting they had.
Might be
that day.
Might be the best thing ever.
Right,
I was unable to draw the correlation between Old Bay seasoned Goldfish. I guess because Goldfish, water, floaty, pool.
Okay.
Is that what it is?
Right.
I don't know, because I really couldn't draw the correlation.
I don't think I've ever had Goldfish while floating.
I have not, but I can be motivated.
Yes. Easily.
I will not close the door on that opportunity. Right. But
open-minded.
Again, Goldfish, by the way, in case you didn't know, Goldfish actually owned by Pepperidge Farm, a subsidiary of Campbell's. Yes, it is that Campbell's, is in Campbell's Soup Company. Campbell's CPB, Charlie Paul Bravo, in terms of publicly traded stock. They're not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Campbell's in any way, but certainly if you like Goldfish, that may be the kind of thing you want to check out. And especially if you're like producer Bill and me, you are a huge fan of Old Bay seasoning.
Yep.
I mean, and again, Old Bay seasoning, I could pretty much put
right. You're either a Old Bay fanatic.
That's true.
Or it's just not your thing.
It's a fair point.
Right.
And does that mean that we have to cliche and call it an acquired taste? I don't know, but I have always liked it.
Yes.
I mean,
I'll lean into it.
Yeah, I'll lean into it. I will definitely lean into it. All right, Old Bay. We're going to keep going on the food theme here because, well, we like to eat here at WSIC. And so we're going to move on from crackers. Yep. What's next? Cookies. You bet. Cookies. Now, we're looking at very popular ones here. These will be ones that I know will be familiar to you. Probably a part of your experience if you like cookies at all, and especially if you buy cookies in the grocery store, not just the homemade kind, which I love those too. But if you're buying cookies in the grocery store, Oreos. I mean, how can you not like Oreos? I mean, I am certain that I am certain that somebody listening right now does not like Oreos. And for all four of you on the planet, I do feel sorry for you. And for the rest of us, listen up. All right, Oreos. So the Oreo coming out this later this month. They've done this a couple of times in the past, not just with this particular promotion, but I know they've done this with a couple of special things they've done in the past. Later on this month, Star Wars Oreos. Oh yeah. Now you're saying, okay, what makes them Star Wars Oreos? Couple things. First of all, standard Oreos, and I know there are a couple of different iterations, maybe a little chocolate cream in addition to the vanilla cream here, but now with the Star Wars ones, when they come out later this month, you will have the opportunity in the same package, both blue cream, right, for the good side.
I'm getting fired up right now.
Are you right? and then the dark side. red.
Yes.
So we're talking blue, and apparently going to have some sugar crystals on them and everything. I mean, it's going to be, and they're both in the same package, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, I will be using the Force.
I will be forcefully getting into a package of those, or 2 or 3,
right?
To try those out. But I thought that was blue and red icing, and again, Oreos, in case you didn't know, owned by Mondelez, one of the large food conglomerates here in the world. MDLZ, Mary David Larry Zebra, is the ticker symbol there. Again, not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold Mondelez, but yeah, if you like Oreos, and Oreos a little bit like, for me, coming into something like Doritos, where I am not. I'm not a casual consumer.
Right.
Meaning,
exactly.
I'm not going in and saying,
game time.
Boy, I'd just like to have one Oreo.
Sure.
Or one Dorito, or even a handful of Doritos. It's like bag.
Yeah, you're a kindred spirit. Yeah.
I mean,
you're amongst friends.
I mean, that's where I'm going. And at the front end of the process, it always seems like the perfect idea.
Right.
And then at the end as I'm looking at the empty package, exactly. And especially if it's late at night, I'm going, do that every time, especially if you
know exactly why you do it.
I know exactly, and you know what? It's going to happen again.
Exactly.
This is not a one-timer.
Right.
It's not. I'll forget it by the next morning.
Right.
And I'm going right back into it. So at any rate, so there you have it. You got Old Bay seasoned Goldfish crackers, and you have Star Wars Oreos.
I'll do it same sitting.
I mean, I will have one in one hand and one in the other. I mean, salty sweet combination.
Correct.
I mean, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I'm all in. I love that stuff. So this is all financial. I mean, these are publicly traded companies. I mean, right? We got Campbell's, we got Mondelez. This is not just casual kind of thing. We're very serious about our food around here. But at any rate, all right. So as we're looking at what's hot here and the kinds of things that are surrounding us. Again, looking at headline kinds of things came out this morning again. Got to say this, got to get a little academic on you here for just a moment as we're looking at what's hot. Because again, we're talking about the consumer, we're talking about spending. We looked at Walmart in terms of their earnings here. Got to talk unemployment. I know it's academic and it's not the kind of thing that's necessarily going to be riveting as a part of a cocktail party conversation. But definitely do have to touch into it. And I specifically have to touch into it because data came out again this morning. It comes out every week, by the way, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, every single week. And there's a whole slew of data that comes out. I'm just going to mention the most well-known parts of that in terms of new claims for unemployment insurance and ongoing claims, meaning those folks who have been on claim for at least a week. Folks, the numbers are very normalized. It's very interesting. It has continued in that way. And again, you've heard me say this. I'll probably tell you when I think I got things on target. And I certainly work hard to tell you when I miss things in terms of what I'm expecting. I expected the unemployment rate would be higher than what it is right now. Truly. With the kind of interest rate moves that we have had, the increases in interest rate moves that we've had here over the last year and a half, almost 2 years, well, really over 2 years now, that I expected we would have a higher unemployment rate. And a lot of that was just really academic. You look at it historically, when we've gone through an interest rate raising cycle, generally speaking, not one-to-one, but generally speaking, we've had an increase in the unemployment rate as well. So I anticipated about a year ago, I started saying on this very show, saying that, probably going to have an uptick in unemployment as much as we don't necessarily want to have that. But boy, it hasn't happened. I mean, we got new claims right around 220,000, which sounds like a big number, is a big number, but in terms of average experience, very much normalized. 220,000-ish in terms of new claims this past week. Ongoing claim, those folks who are on claim for unemployment insurance, about 1.8 million. Again, a big number, but not out of the norm. Actually, very normalized in terms of average experience, not only, again, for new claims, but also for folks who are on continuing claim. So what does that mean? Especially when we're putting it all together with the consumer and rising credit card debt and some concern about, what the consumer is going to be able to do ongoing. Well, none of it at this point is pointing in any great glaring way in any particular space. And that's why we don't want to draw very tight conclusions. But really what we want to continue to do is take a look at data points and keep stuffing them next to each other so that we can make the most informed decisions that we can with regards to our personal financial spaces. That's the goal here. That's what we try to do here on Dollars and Cents, and that's what we want for you as well. So thank you so much for hanging with us here. Third quarter coming to a close, fourth quarter ahead of us here. Stay with us here on Dollars and Cents on WSIC.
Keep it right here. Dollars and Cents with certified financial planner Joshua Dobi. We'll return shortly on 105.9, 100.7 WSIC.
We'll stay dry tonight as temperatures under a mostly clear sky dip down to around 60s. Some outlying spots around the farms and lake may even see upper 50s by Friday morning. Most of our daytime will be dry. Clouds on the increase, though, and by Friday evening, we'll have to keep an eye out for an isolated shower or pop-up thunderstorm. Heading into the weekend, it'll start soggy with rain on Saturday into Sunday, but will dry out Sunday evening. That's your forecast from the WSIC Weather Center. I'm meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. This Friday and Saturday, the Thumb Pickers Convention is happening in Statesville. The Iredell Arts Council welcomes Eddie Pennington, Parker Hastings, Caleb Coots, and others. On Friday, the doors open at 5 p.m. with the concert starting at 6. On Saturday, open mic and workshops run from noon to 5 p.m. with the concert beginning at 6:30. Tickets will be sold at the door with combo packages available. For more information, visit IredellArtsCouncil.org. The Kane Center for the Arts welcomes a performance by the Charlotte Symphony Orchestra Sunday. This thrilling program includes works from Rachmaninoff, Wagner, Handel, and more. Doors open at 1 p.m. with a 2 p.m. showtime. For more information on these shows and many other programs, visit canearts.org. That's C-A-I-N arts.org. It is NASCAR All-Star Week at North Wilkesboro Speedway. On Friday, the NASCAR Cup Series holds practice and qualifying along with a concert featuring Tim Duggar and Neil McCoy. On Saturday, the NASCAR Truck Series contests the Wright Brand 250. Sunday is the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star Open and then the All-Star Race on Sunday night. Visit NorthWilkesboroSpeedway.com for details. Ghostface Brewing in Mooresville holds the inaugural Battle of the Bands on Sunday. 8 bands play their hearts out on 2 stages with 1 winner. The Battle of the Bands begins at 4 p.m. on Sunday at Ghostface Brewing in Mooresville. Micaiah's Bar and Live Music in Mooresville has a brand new trivia game on Tuesday, May 21st. Come out and meet WSIC on-air personalities as the station helps Micaiah's have fun with trivia on a Tuesday. We're excited to meet you on May 21st at Micaiah's. To keep up with all the events happening around the community and much more, including amazing local deals, download the WSIC News app today.
Dollars and Cents continues now. Here's your host, certified financial planner Joshua Dobi on 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Hello and welcome back to Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. I'm your host, Joshua Dobi. Thank you so much for hanging with us. Fourth quarter, ready or not, 11 minutes, 57 seconds until we get to the 5 o'clock hour if you're a 9 to 5er, and I appreciate so much you hanging with us here on Dollars and Cents as we give attention to all things economic and financial, keeping you updated on the kinds of things that hopefully are hitting your radar screens or perhaps are just part of your conversation, thought process, what you're seeing out there. And we're going to be talking here in the fourth quarter on things that have to do with the markets and what we're seeing out there and the kinds of things that we're anticipating for the balance of the quarter, and perhaps even some things to keep in mind as we're running through. We're getting into the summer season. I mean, ready or not, we were talking about end of school kind of stuff. You may have vacation plans out there or some summer job kind of experiences, internship, all that kind of stuff. You or kids or grandkids may have that kind of thing. Whew, ready or not, here we go into that space. But I appreciate so much spending time with us here on Dollars and Cents presented by North Main Financial. All right, let's keep going. Kind of a little anecdotal thought. I mean, I like to bring these things up, maybe to break up the show a little bit so that you just don't hear me hammering away on all these statistics and academic jargon all the time. But kind of an interesting, we're doing on this date, OTD kind of thing here, talking about a group called Geophysical Services. Now, when you're hearing that kind of thing, you may be thinking, well, that doesn't ring true to me at all. Geophysical Services, what is that? Well, it was a group out of Texas that actually was developing some technology to be able to track seismic movements, right? Movements in the Earth's crust. This was 1930 when that kind of thing happened. You may wonder where I'm going with this because you're like, okay, Geophysical Services, 1930. What does that have to do? Well, in 1951, yeah, a little trip down memory lane, right? And but in 1951, this same group decided to change their name to Texas Instruments. So that actually the beginning of Texas Instruments, 1930 on this date. So Texas Instruments, huge company in all kinds of things. Now, if you perhaps have graying and thinning and lacking of hair like I do, Texas Instruments produced a lot, and I know, hold on here, millennials, this may hurt a little bit, produced a lot of the calculators that I used through my academic experience. As a matter of fact, I still have several of my Texas Instruments calculators, which did not have graphics on them. They only had numbers. They were not even in black and white, so you really couldn't even see the numbers very well, Producer Bill. They were black numbers on a very gray screen.
Yes.
So I mean, sometimes you had to hold it up in the light.
Right. Or you could cover it up with like it had the little visibility stripe thing. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I don't know how to describe it. You're just unlocking memories.
I mean, just all of it. Just the nostalgia is just flooding you right now. But I mean, that was it. I mean, so we went to trigonometry or calculus or classes. I mean, that was, getting, and then I remember, and then this, now you hear every old person say this. I remember when I saw the first graphing calculator.
Correct.
And it was a screen. It wasn't just a single line, but you could actually draw trigonometry graphs on it. I mean, calculus graphs on it. I mean, that was big cheese.
Yeah, unpleasant memories now.
Unpleasant now. That's exactly right, because I was the guy who was hoping for the curve.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
so let's, and I don't mean the curve on the graph screen. No. I'm talking about the graded curve that was there that said, nobody better do too well on this because I'm going to need some help.
Right.
For those of you who know what a graded curve is, you probably don't have to worry about that kind of thing. I do. All right. So Texas Instruments on this date, starting its precursor there in 1930 and renamed in 1951. All right. I know you're asking for the markets. Let's go to it. Amazing, folks. Amazing. I mean, I have to say it that way, not because movements in the markets are anymore. It doesn't seem like unprecedented. Very, very few unprecedented kinds of movements. So I'm not saying it for that reason. We've never been here. This has never happened before. But I'll tell you what, at least as of the time of this live broadcast, or if you're listening to the recording, we crossed over for the first time today. Didn't close there, I don't think. I'd have to take a look at it. Crossed over today, 40,000 on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, 40,000. Now, what does that mean? In and of itself, as far as I'm concerned, absolutely nothing. It doesn't. I mean, except to say that we have appreciated with the companies inside of the Dow Jones Industrial Average a significant amount during that time. However, caveat, always caveat, right? Looking at it, not the same companies during that time. Meaning those companies have changed a number of times. Meaning the 30 companies which comprise the Dow Jones Industrial Average have changed a number of times through the years. So it's not a pure representation, which is why you hear me say with some regularity here on Dollars and Cents, I never get wound too tightly to where the indexes are. The indexes are a tool. You can make an argument about how effective or helpful that they are. They are certainly widely quoted when we're talking about who pays attention to the indexes, how folks sometimes compare their investments or portfolio against the indexes, all of those things. And that's why I spend time on them, because they are so profuse in their dissemination and certainly the number of times that they are used. Business programs, you're looking at tickers across the bottom of the screen on television, all that kind of stuff. That's why I do it. But in terms of the actual application, that's why when the Dow Jones Industrial Averages crosses 40,000, I'm like, well, at least insofar as today's basket of stocks is concerned. Because, again, that has changed regularly many, many times here over the last 60, 70, 80 years. So very important to keep that kind of thing in mind. But, again, still when we're looking at markets, so now you've heard me talk a little bit negative. Let's talk positive. Amazing movements. I mean, we came out of the gate strong. First quarter, that S&P 500 index was up 10% in the first quarter here of 2024. April was a little bit of cooling off time, a little moderation. I even thought we may be starting to normalize some of that really hot movement that we had there in the first quarter. But boy, we flipped the calendar from April over to May. Boom. We just kicked it right back into gear and have had a very positive May to date. Now we're halfway through the month, so it's not like we have the whole month yet, or that I want to micromanage onto just a small collection of trading days. Remember, small number of data points, not very healthy in terms of looking at where things are, but we have to call it what it is. And again, coming out of 2023, I anticipated, to say it more specifically, that we would not be able to keep that same kind of intensity of momentum that we saw there at the end in the fourth quarter of 2023. But boy, we have. Very interesting to see that kind of thing. And we've even had a little bit more breadth in the market as well. Not across the board. Not that everything is doing well. That rarely is the case. But we've had more breadth in the market. Now, what's breadth? Before I get too far into that, breadth means basically a broadening of the number of companies, in this instance, that we're talking about that are doing well. Last year, very narrow breadth. Certainly as measured by our most popular stock indices, meaning that a very small, relatively speaking, number of companies did very, very well last year in 2023, and mathematically, not just my opinion, but mathematically skewed the indexes to be able to show some very, very positive points of return for the indexes, even though it was a relatively small portion of companies that did very, very well. And that's important to keep that kind of thing in mind. I know you hear me say this all the time. You probably think I just don't like stock indexes. That's not true. That's not. I am very agnostic when it comes to the indexes or anything else for that matter that happens to be a tracking mechanism, because I want to call it for what it is. There are positives, there are negatives, there are strengths, there are weaknesses, as is true with just about anything that has to do with data and mathematics. But when we're looking at it, to understand how the indexes are put together, very important to keep that kind of thing in mind. So last year, very narrow breadth. Tech companies, big technology companies that did the best and really skewed the indexes, not just the S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ composite, which are very skewed towards big technology companies, but even the Dow Jones Industrial Average a little bit, even really anathema to its name, but really it was also influenced by that as well. We really kept that going into the first quarter. Like I said, very, very strong movement into the first quarter. And then, like I said, a little bit of a cooling off period in April. And boom, we hit the switch on the calendar from April over to May. And the first couple of weeks have been very, very hot there. So, all right, so that's where we've been. And that, in many instances, is where we are, certainly from a stock index standpoint. Well, what do we anticipate, right? The multi-trillion-dollar question. Okay, we know where we are. We know why we're here, maybe a little bit, about, talking about in terms of where the consumer is and certainly the strength of earnings for a number of companies when we're looking at it. Breadth increasing, right? So we got financials now in the mix. We've got oil and energy companies now in the mix that are doing well. We've got gold, right? If you looked at the price of gold, that also has had a good year to date, up double digits percentage-wise from where it started the year. So we're looking at these things. We're getting an increase in breadth beyond where just the technology company is doing well, and seeing some big financials and oil and energy and gold. Well, now what? Right? It always is that. It's okay, great for where we've been in terms of understanding, good for that. But most importantly, now what? What's ahead of us? Well, I'm going to just give you a pregnant pause there. Nobody knows, right? You're not going to get that from me. I mean, if I really was that intelligent, well, I'd probably have to charge you for listening to this broad. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. But anyway, looking at what's coming ahead of us here, I think it's important. So joking aside, I think it's important to have muted expectations for what's coming ahead for the balance of the year. And I say it from this standpoint. Averages, right, are developed rather. Averages are developed based upon data points that for a certain amount of time are above the average and for a certain amount of time are below the average. All right, you're saying, okay, that's incredibly elementary in terms of understanding. I say that, though, to remind you that if we're running above the average for a notable amount of time, then at a certain point, we need to run below the average for a certain amount of time in order to get, hold on, wait for it, the average. And that's important. Now, the average can shift and change over time, meaning in terms of the average return in the stock market, it absolutely can do that, especially when you're looking at specific sectors or specific companies. I'll grant you all of that. But generally speaking, when we're looking at the broad market, if we're running above the average for some measure of time, at a certain point, we need to run below the average. And that's important. That's important when you're looking at your portfolio. That's important when you're looking at whether it's important to buy, sell, or hold on anything. Right? It's not the only factor. There are many, many, many other factors, most of them very specific to your space, which are important to keep in mind as well. But let me say it from the other side of the spectrum. Just buying what has done well does not mean that you will do well in the future. Very important, because we got a collection of companies out there that have done very, very well here over the last 15 to 18 months. And that doesn't mean that they're going to do well. It doesn't mean they're going to do poorly either, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do well just because they have done well. And I know that sounds elementary, but we see it happen all the time, where folks are most interested in buying the things that have most recently done well. So keep that in mind when you're putting your portfolio and thoughts together. Friends, I appreciate so much hanging with us here. This week's version of Dollars and Cents, presented by North Main Financial. Looking forward to talking with you next week as we reconvene here on WSIC.
Serving you better than ever before. WSIC, Statesville, W290DK Mooresville, W264CU Statesville.